We're super pleased to have you here. Awesome. John, thank you so much for joining the conversation. You have an extensive career, around, in a way, hospitality, as you've been in, incredible positions, with Little Caesars, Jimmy John's, also dove into retail. So you're an expert in definitely scaling and, running enterprise level stores. I mean, we're excited to be able to have you in this conversation and to know a little bit more about what you're doing right now with Great Enterprises. For those, I know I can probably, say so much, and we're going to discover that in this conversation today. But for those that are joining for the first time, maybe you can give us a quick background, a little bit about yourself, and then that can kick off the show.
I started at Little Caesars kind of like as a manager trainee at one store, and 5 years later, I was the national marketing director and had 1,600 stores. So it was basically the old mail room to, a big position. I caught Little Caesars at the right time. We were growing about 1.5 to 2 stores a day for 5 straight years. So we went I joined them and they had 1,300 locations. And then 5 years later, we had 5,000 locations. It's one of those, I caught them at the right time. And if you showed any semblance of a brain, they kept on promoting you. So I became the national marketing director, and I left there. I was getting some pressure. I was living in Chicago at the time. I grew up in Detroit, but they were based in Detroit. They kept on trying to get me to move back to Detroit. Didn't really want to do that. So I jumped over to a convenience store chain in Chicago. We had 800 locations in the Midwest. Stayed with them for about 7 years, and we grew that to 1,400 locations. I went as a marketing guy, and I came out where I was the head of 5 different divisions. I headed up real estate, headed up facilities, headed up merchandising, which was $900 million worth of Twinkies and cigarettes, and I headed up marketing and was the company spokesperson. So I had corporate communications as well. Headed up some subgroups, one of which was TISC. It was the Tactical IS Committee. So any new IS committee, IT project that had to be approved by the company had to come through my committee, which was kind of interesting. I also headed up the capital committee, so I controlled a lot of the dollars that were associated with our expansion. So those are 2 great committees to head up, in addition to all the divisions. And then I went over and I was the president of Jimmy John's for a little bit. Saw great growth there, but Jimmy and I didn't really get along that well, so we went our separate ways. And I started Grey Cat in 2004. So it is now 2+ decades of doing consulting work, and I focus in on strategic planning because of my high growth background. Companies that want to go from 10 units to 100 units, how do you do it? I look around the corner for them and help them with that. I do senior project management, so I'll think of me as like a vice president for hire. A lot of smart companies out there just don't have extra bodies sitting around. They need someone who can come in and hit the ground running without a lot of hand holding. That's what I do because of my background. And then the third area is I do interim or divisional leadership. So company goes out and buys a division. They don't have anyone to run it. I go in and run it on an interim basis down to the P&L level, try to make it better when I turn it back over to them. Or a company gets rid of their chief marketing officer or their chief operating officer, and they slide me into that role. Usually those happen in a hurry because they just fired the person or that person just left and they need someone tomorrow. And it's going to take them 6 to 12 months to find a full-time replacement. So I go in there, put my fingers in the holes in the dam, and kind of keep things moving forward. So that's how I've made a living for the last 2 decades. Probably more than you wanted to know, but
impressive. Well, I'll tell you what, I got a lot of details, and probably you answered a lot of the questions right immediately in that intro. And it's impressive, right? Because you started from managing at the store level, and all of a sudden, you grew into these amazing positions, right? Stretching and understanding your full potential. how did that story, unfold? How, um, was there a secret sauce where, you showed your potential, or let's say, what was the mindset walking in? These things you pursued, or they kind of, it was a combination. How was that transition? Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say that I wasn't in a great position at Little Caesars because, when you're growing that fast, they're looking for people that can step up and go to the next level. And so I did everything I could to make sure that, my store, even though I was only in charge of one store at the time, I was a manager trainee, and then they gave me my own store like 2 months later. So I had my own store. And I just took it upon I'd never run a store before. I'd never been in retail before. And I just took it upon myself to figure out what is the smartest way to optimize this store. So from a operations standpoint, I could tell that a lot of the employees didn't know what to do. So I painstakingly wrote down, back in the day on 3x5 cards, I wrote down, here are the 5 or 6 things that you need to accomplish in your 4-hour shift. And then
Okay.
I fixed it to their area of, the guy taking the pizzas out of the oven. He had to do these 4 or 5 things. I did that for the guy making the pizzas. And I operationalized everything. We had to count inventory every night, every week, and then the full store every month. Well, what's the fastest way that I can count inventory? Well, if I got to count a box of forks and there's 500 forks in there, I don't want to count 500 forks. So I bundled them in 25s. And so I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 150. I got 6 left over. I got 156. Next item. And everything that I did, I became a shrewd, optimized operator, that I was leaving the store after doing inventory at 11:10 p.m. at night, and all the other managers were there to 2 in the morning because they were counting forks. And I just said no. So I'm going to approach every role I get is, how do I optimize and how do I do more in less time?
Yeah.
And so I've carried that into my other corporate jobs, and now I clearly carry that into Gray Cat because it's to my benefit that if I can deliver a project in the quickest time possible, I can optimize my gross margins on that project as opposed to spending hour upon hour doing things. So I utilize technology, I utilize countless templates that I've done before that I repurpose for some of my clients. And that's how I optimize and have optimized my entire career.
Nice. Amazing how, you kind of enter into the state of really development, and really helping, others kind of also reach their full potential. And that kind of facilitates your own progress, right? It's easy when you're able to control that, single unit and optimize it, then you build a foundation to scale. Your story is very interesting. You've been put into roles that you never planned to do. I think it was when you were at White Hen, where you entered into real estate or in IT roles, capital management. How did you were able to kind of adapt, right, to all of these um, let's say unique roles, right? Did you have a background to fall on? Did you have something that inspired you? Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I owned a hammer, and so they gave me facilities management. So they said, "Oh, he owns tools." Now it was funny. I was like I said, I was kind of an operator because of my Little Caesars days, and I was also a marketer. So I felt pretty confident in those 2 areas. And then I got a call from the COO and the CEO, and they pulled me into the office at Clark, and they said, "Matthews, we want to give you facilities management." And I'll keep this G-rated, but my response to them was, what the F do I know about facilities management? And they go, well, here's our vision for you. We want you to think of what a store should look like. We want you to design the store. We want you to have your merchandising people, your category managers fill the store with products. We want to have your advertising team, promote the store, and now we want you to head a facility so that you can actually build the store. We want you to go from A to Z and then you just turn it over to operations. You give them the keys and they run it. And so I kind of got their vision, but I wasn't a construction guy. I didn't know anything about construction, environmental, the whole purchasing aspect. And they basically said, "You're a smart guy. You'll figure this out." And so, I did it for 6 months, and sure enough, I did figure out that I was probably better equipped to be a facilities guy than I am a marketing guy. I'm more of a very methodical, linear thinker as opposed to a free, creative guy for marketing. But I did learn, the biggest thing I learned there is if I'm going to manage people that are specialists, like an environmental person or a construction person, I got to hire the best, smartest people to do it, give them the leeway to do their jobs, and get the hell out of their way. And I should spend my time helping them navigate through the nuances of an organization, getting their budgets approved, getting their designs approved, and then let them do their technical expertise, because I'm not going to be the smartest environmental person or the construction guy. I should be the kind of the administrator that makes sure that they can do their job. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head from a leadership standpoint, that you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be, the one who knows every aspect of every job. You need to be able to go out there and hire the people that know their jobs, and then keep them out of harm's way and allow them to get around all the hurdles that they have to do their job effectively, and you help them navigate that. And I think I learned at that point that, all right, they gave me real estate like a year later. I'm like, yeah, why not? I will just get a really good real estate person and she'll manage it, and I will help her navigate the same things. And then they said, well, we want you to run this IT committee. And I'm like, yeah, why not? So it didn't really matter. I had been in the abyss long enough that I realized that there isn't a boogeyman out there that's just basic business. And if you hire technical experts that are really sharp and really smart, you let them do their job.
No, very interesting, and I can relate a lot with that. I have a philosophy in that sometimes I approach a leadership role, and what I want to do is I want to hire people that are better than me in certain things, right? I identify those that are better, put them in the right positions, and obviously that ecosystem just kind of flourishes, right? So quite interesting, right? Where certain skills, you don't need to have them all, right? All you need to have is really the right vision to put the people in the right places, right? Tell me a little bit about your father, how that inspired you to be able to kind of jump from these corporate roles. I know there's a story behind that, and then to say, hey, I'm ready to do my venture on my own. What was kind of like the inspiration there to be able to open your company, Gray Cat?
Well, I was the youngest of six, and so there was quite an age difference between he and I. And so I was going through college while he was still working in his 50s, and he was always a sales manager in the corrugated industry, corrugated packaging industry, and he worked for companies, and then he got laid off, or he got let go, he got fired, or I don't know the whole story. All I know is he was out of work. But he had been in that industry for such a long time that he had a lot of connections. So he said, you know what, I'm just going to become a manufacturer's rep. I'm in my 50s, and lo and behold, after a year or so, he said, I'm making more money, and I got more flexibility in my schedule, and I'm able to play golf and everything like that. So I was in my 20s, and I was close to him at that point. My other brothers and sisters had moved away, and so he kind of started to go, if you think about it, you probably want to be in a position that you have your own business. You don't have enough knowledge now, so go out there and work at the corporate jobs, gather up as much information, and then set a target that you want to do your own business. So I listened to that, and I was probably, in my mid-20s, and I said, maybe 40, 45 would be a good time to start my own business, and I'm just going to bust my rear in corporate America and learn as much as I can, and I'm a pack rat, so I saved all these spreadsheets that were brilliant done by other people, and I've got PowerPoint decks out the wazoo, and In my early 40s, I started my own company, and there was no looking back. And I've been doing this for 22 years. My friends laugh at me. They're like, "You got like a 2 terabyte laptop full of stuff." I go, "Yeah, there's not a spreadsheet I don't have that I can repurpose, that I can actually recreate and utilize." It's been great, and to his credit, it does give you a heck of a lifestyle. You can make good money, and um, you know, it's worked out quite well. So.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, it takes guts, and I'm kind of going through that process myself. So, I've been, always unemployed, and I have my little ventures here, but yeah, sometimes it requires, a little bit of, kind of life putting you there. Actually, wise people learn from others' journey. So I think that puts you a little bit in that category. You know, um, you go from the C-suite to having your own job, or building your own, empire or work. Uh, what was that first year like? What was that transition like?
It was actually remarkably easier than I thought, because well, I've always been a huge networker. And so I had a huge network of contacts. And I used to do it the old fashioned way back in the day. I'd switch jobs and I literally would send letters out to people saying, "Hey, I'm no longer at this company, I'm at that company." Today everyone just sends a text. But back in the day that didn't exist. You couldn't really send emails to people and text to people that you were leaving one company for another. So I always did that, and I just stayed in touch with people. And when I decided to launch my own company, I had more contacts reaching out to me saying, "I got a project for you. I got a project for you." And then all of a sudden, the first year I go, "Holy cow, I'm making more money than I was in my corporate job. This might actually work." And then so, I do thank those clients that took a chance on me right out of the gate, because probably half of them were thinking, he's just going to do this for a year and then he's going to go back to corporate, and so I'll help bridge the gap for him or something like that. But it 1 year turned into 3, then turned into 10, and now it's 22. So it just kind of has built, but it's all been around having the contacts, letting people know that you're out there. Um, Constantly, my sales cycle is very long. It's very soft too. I don't really go out there and pound the pavement that I need work. I just kind of let people know that I am credible, that I'm out there. And when you have a project, you'll reach out to me because you've been seeing me on LinkedIn for the last 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And that happens. I get people that have said, "I've been reading your posts for the longest time, and now I actually have a project for you. Do you think you can help me out?" And so my sales approach is a little bit more soft, and it's just more of a credibility statement than anything else. And now the longevity of it is screaming even more credibility, because I've been able to do this for 20 plus years. I remember when I first started the organization, I met with a guy that I used to work with that started his own company. And he goes, "John, I've been doing this for 26 months. And I was in month 2. And I said, "God, I want to be able to say that, 26 months. And now I'm 22 years." So
Wow.
it's kind of cool.
Impressive, man. I really relate a lot with everything you're saying. I think that, I hate sales, and I hate how sometimes salespeople just come across, right? And I think that the organic route is really the one that builds trust. In this time of day, we are in a trust recession, and typically, when you get to kind of break the ice and establish the credibility, the flow, everything, the relationship is definitely becoming better. Think about consulting, and you say something about in your positioning of Great Cats that says we actually get the work done. Um, that's funny because before I became a consultant, I used to say, well, consultants come in and they tell you everything that it's bad.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like I already know what's bad. I'm calling you because I need to fix it. What do you try to imply about consultants? How they consultants operate in that statement.
Yeah, that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up because that's always the biggest challenge is that people think of you as a consultant, and I'm more of an operations guy. I'm
Right.
like, you know what? I see your issue here. Like yesterday, I had lunch with a guy that I know. I've done work for this company before, and he was bemoaning about, I don't even know what's in our stores. I can't keep track of everything. And I said, hey, I could help you because about 2 decades ago, I took on building a master database for all of our stores, the 1,400 stores, because we didn't have anything like that. And I said we built it in Microsoft Access, but basically every store had the same thing. So every store had 25 pictures taken of the store, and they were in the same sequence. Picture 1 was always the front of the store. Picture 8 was always the coffee bar and everything like that. And then so every store, you could look at pictures, you could look at their financials, you could look at their capital investment, you could look at their environmental, you could look at their merchandising strategy, you could look at their real estate footprint, you could look at like 8 or 9 attributes of that store. And so this database allowed us to go, why would we spend money on capital projects in these stores? Because they never have returned money on capital because we have that information for the store. When we ended up selling the company, the people that came into the data room thought that was amazing that we had this database built. So this guy was bemoaning the fact that he doesn't know what's in his stores. I said, not only do I know how to set it up, I could help you actually create this database. So instead of me just saying, hey, you know what, you need to build a database and then just leave it at that, I'm already ahead of the curve going, not only can I tell you what should be in the database, but I can help you build the database. So that's what I mean by that. When my clients give me a project, they get out of the way, they let me do the project, because half the time they don't even know what the project is, and I got to go and kind of figure out what the elements of the project before I can even deliver on the project. So I have to do that. And when I do the interim gigs, I'm clearly running the division. I mean, I go to my clients to say, hey, this is what I'd like to do and get their approval on certain things. But I'm responsible for the profit and loss statement. I'm responsible for the personnel. I do their performance reviews. I'm running that division. Right. And then I'm going to my client just to say, hey, I see an issue here. I see an opportunity there, and so on and so forth. So I'm more of an operational consultant than I am a management consultant. And when I identify an issue, I can't tell you how many times I go into my 2 terabyte laptop and say, I already have how you should lay out your capital investment strategy here. I've already got this deck here. Right. Let me just give this to you.
Amazing.
KPIs is another one. I've got a huge KPI template that we use at Clark that why should you pay for it? I've already got it, and I could help modify it to your needs. So it's being able to deliver that. And consequently, I get a lot of clients that come to me and they go, I got a 90-day or a 6-month project. And then next thing you know, I've been working with them for 42 months. My longest client just ended in December. A 90-day project turned into 13 years. Wow. So I did so many projects for them. Amazing. Because they just continue to see value. And the only reason why it stopped in December is they sold off one of the divisions that I was working with. So now I'm talking to the company that bought them. And so It may turn out that it comes back around. So.
Okay. Well, piggybacking on that thought actually right now, you come in as a consultant, you kind of straighten everything, turn those business around, give them the structure, give them the tools. Do you have an exit plan? I mean, is there a process where then you kind of hand off the keys, or a lot of these jobs say, hey, please stay with us, continue to work, how does that, kind of, evolution of your services look like overall?
Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of my clients want to hire me full time for them, mm-hmm. but I can't because I've got other commitments to other clients. And so it's kind of hard for me to break that. They'd all have to simultaneously end for me to be able to do that. I'm not going to leave one of my clients in a lurch. But a lot of it is, they're transitioning me out of one project because they got another project right behind that they want to give me. And so that's
Right.
kind of how that transition goes. On the interim gigs, it's always on a temporary. Now, some of these temporary interim gigs have lasted 3 years. I mean, it isn't like I'm going in for a couple of months. I ran a Seattle division from Raleigh for 3 years. I went out there 67 times in 3 years to manage that division. But the division was losing money when I started, and it was making seven figures when I left. So my client was more than happy with the results of that division. And then I turned it over to someone who was a full-time employee at the company, which is fine. That's, I know, do I have an ego? Yeah, I love doing what I do, but I also have the ego that, you know what, I'm not here full time for you guys. I don't work for you full time. I totally expect you to jettison me at just like every other one of my clients when the projects end.
Right.
You know, it's just, it is what it is. You know, I don't get offended by it like, oh, I'm doing a bad job or anything like that. Generally, it's they either run out of money or they run out of projects.
Right.
And it's nothing more than that. So.
Is there a fundamental, let's say, or common, trait that you see sometimes when you enter into these partnerships? Let's say where sometimes companies struggle the most, meaning, are they, well structured, right? Do they have the right leadership? Is it the culture that is not built correctly? Do you see anything that it's a standout and or is it a combination of all, or it just depends on each case?
You know, those are probably more macro components of companies. Where I add a lot of value is more in the micro components because no one has an opportunity to dig as deep as I'm going to dig.
Okay.
So, for instance, like if I'm given an interim role, I grab that P&L. I go through that P&L line by line. And I remember running a division in Billings, Montana once, and I walked around the office and I counted the number of phones. And we had 12 phones. And I go, we're paying for 13 phone lines. Where's the 13th phone? And they're going, we don't know. But behind that file cabinet, we used to have a fax machine. So we pulled the file cabinet out, and sure enough, there was an outlet for a phone. And so I called the phone company and found out that we were paying $75 a month for that outlet that was behind a file cabinet for the last 5 years. And I go, that's $75 a month. I mean, that's $1,000 a year. You guys paid $5,000 for a phone line that you haven't used in 5 years. You know, that's just stupid. You know, and that's where my Little Caesars counting the forks, mentality comes in. I just dissect everything, and I go, I'll save you $1,000 here. We'll flip off the lights when you're out of that room. We'll save 25 cents there and everything like that. It's just, to me, a lot of these companies just don't have people that can burrow in like I can because I'm unencumbered. I don't have to sit through all those stupid administrative meetings. I don't have to be a part of all the, rah-rah stuff. I can just kind of do my job on their behalf. And
Amazing.
So it frees up my time to burrow in and find the opportunities at the micro level. I can influence some of the macro stuff, but why am I wasting my time there when I can add value at the micro level? And then I really enjoy seeing them give me the problem child, division and saying, help us. And I go in and find opportunity after opportunity. And then I leave it in a better place. And then they give me another problem child and I go over and fix that. And then collectively, all of a sudden, all these divisions are making money where a year earlier they weren't. And that's where I add the value.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot into how you're able to make these incredible connections and network through LinkedIn. I know that you've had, 21 years, right, since you started your own business. How does that process happen? And I think you commented that 90% of your business comes from LinkedIn right now. How do you utilize this platform so it converts for you, right?
You know what? It's very easy actually. I produce a lot of original content. So I write an article for a magazine every month. So every month I got a brand new blog out there. I already have close to 300 blogs that I've written that I repurpose, things that are out there. I have 85 testimonials from people on LinkedIn that I have a testimonial Tuesday that I'll post that out there. I think I'm doing 6 podcasts this month alone. So I will get the content from the podcast and I'll break it up into pieces, or you guys break it up into pieces for me, and I'll post that. So basically about every 3 to 4 times a week, I'm posting original content that's going out on LinkedIn that people see it and they kind of go, wow, I didn't know that guy did project management. I didn't know that guy helped sell an IT company. I didn't know this guy was the head of merchandising. It's a credibility statement, and it's the old soft pitch out there that people know who I am. And so eventually I get enough people that respond and say, you could help us. And that's how I've generated business over I'd say the last 15 years, 90% has come directly from LinkedIn. And some people are multiple time users. Like I met a woman 17 years ago that hired me at one company. She left that company. She went to another one. She hired me there. She left that company. That company kept me on. And so I worked another 6 years for that company. And then she went to a third company, and now I'm working for her again at the third company. And I met her on LinkedIn 17 years ago.
Wow.
And so it's just, if you continue to prove yourself and you actually, they know that they can throw stuff at you and you can turn it around and make it actually, get through their pipe, and now they have something that's usable, that's a huge value for them.
Yeah. You've seen significant changes in how, let's say, you show up in the platform from those 20 years that you've been active on it. And maybe what are some of those changes been?
Well, honestly, everyone today is wham bam salesman, type of approach. You get a connection request, and next thing you know, you get a 4-paragraph email saying, "Hey, buy my product." There's no relationship building whatsoever. And unfortunately, when I actually send out an email to one person, it probably gets lost in all of that because they're thinking I'm just another guy that's pitching, when I actually see an opportunity to say, hey, we should probably get to know each other. You're in the industry. I just did a project in this industry. I could probably help you. And that gets lost, unfortunately, because I get 40 of those a day, and I'm sure you guys do too. So there's a lot of noise out there. So part of what I try to do is have people hopefully see me on LinkedIn as someone who's credible out there with a variety of different formats that I'm putting out there, including having a Gray Cat page in addition to a John Matthews profile as well. So I just try to mix it up. And a lot of it is because I had such a huge network going in, I do know a lot of my contacts on LinkedIn. So these aren't just a bunch of, do I have random people? Sure. But I got a good core of people that actually I can go through and go, yeah, I met that person 10 years ago on a plane. We've stayed in touch, and I used to work with that person, and so on and so forth. That those people are seeing it and they know who I am, and then I'm getting a lot of referrals from those folks because they know what I can bring to the table.
Yeah, I love it. I think in our previous conversation, you mentioned something like you have 8,500 contacts in your iPhone that you track manually. Do you have a system for that? No?
It's just like if I get a phone call from someone and your name doesn't pop up, that phone is not being answered. So if you can't make the top 8,500, you're not getting it. It's not worth it.
Got it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about AI, right?
Sure.
Talk to me about, maybe let's just talk about sentiment. How do you see AI, kind of penetrating into, business today? How do you see the adoption of AI in some of the businesses that you consult today? Tell me your feel a little bit on AI overall.
Well, AI to me is a tool. I mean, LinkedIn is a tool.
Right.
Now, you can have a LinkedIn account and kind of go, well, I don't make any money off of LinkedIn. Well, it's because you just bought the tool and you didn't do anything with it.
Hmm.
You could buy an AI tool and you could just have AI write the same intro letter that it wrote for 900 other people before you, and you're not going to stand out. You're going to be that guy that just is sending out a ton of letters that sounds like it's an AI written letter. And so, if you're going to use the tool that way, I think you're kidding yourself. I use AI to help. Like, for instance, I just went out to a vendor for one of my clients 3 weeks ago. I gathered up a ton of notes as I was there for 2 days. I put all these notes into ChatGPT and I said, do me a favor, just write a narrative to kind of recap this. It was all my content going in. And so I got a report that was very specific to that vendor. It wasn't AI-ized, so to speak. It
Right.
just saved me a lot of time from having to rewrite it and add all the vernacular and everything like that. It did it. That saved me a ton of time. I have a lot of PowerPoint presentations that I spent the time putting all the content in, and now I want that PowerPoint presentation to be in a different format. I want it to be in an article. So now I can just take that PowerPoint presentation, put that into ChatGPT. It writes a beautiful article for me, but it's taken all my content and doing that. So it's Johnny-ized it, but it's just in a different format. And I love using it for that. It saves me a lot of time in doing that. And then I can critique from there. If I need some standardized letters, I can critique from there. I use that. I use some through my Kajabi, where I have my online courses, in helping to, at least for the people that do follow me on Greycat, send out some communication to them, letting them know that these online courses are there. But I always go back to, if you don't have the original content feeding in, you're going to get the AI version coming out.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me that I have so much content at my disposal that I've created in various formats.
Yeah.
And now, because of AI, I can utilize this tool to convert it, repurpose it, update it in new formats. That's what I love about it. And I've started to do that more and more over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think that's a conversation I also have a lot with some prospects and people that reach out to us, is that, in a way you kind of have to clone your brain, right? And in order to clone your brain, you really have to speak to it. You have to tell them your point of view, and all that content, as you feed it into the AI, then adapts to the output that large language model offers you. So yeah, it's not a one fix, give me this, that. It's whatever you put in is really what you're able to get out.
Yeah.
Curious to see in your perspective how, maybe some of these business owners or operators, when that conversation comes, I don't know if it does come, but when that conversation comes, are most of them open to it, or some of them are hesitant to have their leaders using it? Is there any resistance that you see overall? How is that adoption in your lens?
I don't think there's any resistance, because they're viewing it in dollars and cents. Either I'm going to have a staff of 20 people doing this, or I could have a staff of 15 and still have greater output. I think in more of the junior level roles, where you could, easily replace, let's say, a paralegal or something like that if you're an attorney, because you can pretty much get that information off of ChatGPT or whatever one you want to use. You could get pretty close, and you could have your attorneys then just kind of, add some T's and cross some T's and add some I's, to it. So I do think that there is an appetite for it, because you got to be able to incorporate it in a way that it makes sense.
Right.
Here's for instance, if you go to Home Depot and they force you through the self checkout line, if they still have to have 3 employees there helping you go through the self-checkout line,
It's
I'm not sure what they've saved, because now they had to invest all that time and energy in that technology solution. But if no one can use it, or they're still afraid that people are just going to walk right out and it's more of a theft issue, that you need to have policemen there to make
right.
sure people aren't walking out, then it kind of defeats the purpose. And if
Yeah.
it's frustrating, like for instance, I know the Home Depot I go to, they got some that take cash and they got some that take credit cards. And sometimes I want to pay cash because I'm buying a box of screws and I got a $10 bill in my pocket and I can cover that. But that line is longer than the other one, and now I'm frustrated as a customer. So
Yeah.
um, there are some challenges to it.
Right.
So it's in how that gets adopted.
You got to find the sweet spot where it's actually efficient, and it's helping, right? The operation, right? And I think that we're going through that phase. We're kind of understanding what this technology does. It's not a one size fits all. Some tools work for some operations, some tools work for others. It's hard to just go shopping for just a solution. It's more about how do you customize an ecosystem that really helps unique for you. If overall, as you explore all of these businesses, um, if you were designing a tool, for operators to work with, let's say multi-unit retailers or convenience stores, QSR chains, what problem would you have that tool maybe solve, or what
Well,
problems?
let me tell you how I would approach it. I
Hmm.
would have them not even think about the tool. I would have them think about the process before they even think about the tool. So putting it all down on paper, putting it into an Excel spreadsheet, doing it. How would you actually do that? Go back to my Little Caesars day. How would you actually do your inventory? Well, the process should be that instead of me counting 156 individual forks, I count 6 bundles of 25 plus 6. So the process of how you can make it a shorter time period to do that inventory. What is the optimal operational way that you want to run the business? And then you find the tool that can help you. So I'll give you another example. I don't know if you've ever been to Sam's Club. I'm a huge advocate of Sam's Club. Not only can you save a ton of money, but their technology that they use at Sam's Club is great. They've got scan and go, where you can you take the item out on your phone, you scan the item, you put it in the cart, you
Yeah.
walk through the store. When you're done, you pay for it on your phone. And this is where a lot of people are like, well, why would I use that? Well, the reason why you use it is because if you go there on Saturday and there's 15 people in line, and now you got to stand in line to check out, and then you got to take all that crap out of your cart, put it up on the conveyor, have them run it up, and then you got to put it all back in your cart, and you're doing all that. In the meantime, I've already kind of scanned my items, I've paid for it, I've walked through their little sensor that counts the items in my basket, and then they go, sir, you're good to go, and I can walk right out without breaking stride. Now you have not only given me a technology solution, but you have solved the operational headaches that I would have of going to Sam's on a Saturday, of standing in line behind all those clowns buying their 47 boxes of diapers, and then watching it take all the crap out of their cart, put it on the conveyor, put it back in, chatting up the person. And now this whole process, I did all my shopping in 15 minutes, and now I got to wait in line for 45 minutes. That's a
No.
problem.
Yeah.
Now I can do my shopping in 15 minutes and I'm out the door.
Yeah.
And that to me is technology. It's kind of like the Amazon Go when they had the just walk out technology, where you just picked items off and you just walked right out, and it read all the items with their cameras, and you're able to go. That's where technology, someone thought about the operational hurdles for Sam's, and they said, let's address all these with this technology solution. And I don't think enough companies do that in advance. They just simply go out and buy the AI tool, and then they go, we still have 3 people there trying to help with our self-checkout.
Right. Right. It's all about convenience at the same time. Jerry, I know you have a couple of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so John, what I really think from all the conversation you did, till now, the most important part was, how you were able to build that SOPs and that scalable, checklists that can be helpful for anyone, out there. And, how you were able to also store and manage all the data across, these last couple of decades. So now you are thinking, at that moment in your life where you are at the moment, you have been to all these areas and, ups and lows with the power of AI, which can be really helpful in to organize a lot of data and give you insights about that. So what do you think, what's the next step in your life in that regard? What's the your vision using AI? What's the next big thing that you're looking forward to when John Matthews 2.0 version, where you can build your second brand or stuff like that. So, do you have any idea in your mind? Because there's a lot of AI noise also, but there is huge opportunity because I think the point from where you are doing business at the moment is more about impact part because what I really observe from all those founders who spent this many years in the industry after 2-3 decades it's more about the impact part rather than just making money out of that thing. So, how are you thinking to leverage this AI stuff to create much broader impact with all the information that you have in your mind?
Well, if it could help me hit the golf ball straighter, I'd probably be all over that AI tool. It would enable me to do that. That's where I'm at in my life right now. Um, but you know, I think there's probably there's a lot of knowledge that I have kind of on my website. If you go to my website, I got the Great Cat Learning Series there, and there's 15 courses there, and they're all 40 minutes long. I sell them to individuals. I don't sell a ton of them to individuals because a lot of people just don't find me and find that website, and they're not willing to spend $100 to learn. I just think people don't really care as much as they used to. I don't know, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of valuable things. Matter of fact, I just recorded one this morning for a customer that purchased some from me for their constituents. That's where I sell them, is through companies because they need training materials and things like that. And so I do that. If AI could figure out how to communicate to that guy in Tokyo that says, "Hey, John Matthews at Great Cat has a great course on how to manage your P&L," and I can make it relevant for them, that'd be great because then I could get mailbox money coming in from that. I'm
John,
not quite sure that that can
yeah,
be done considering the amount of noise that is currently out there because everybody and their brother is bombarding everyone with all these AI generated messages. And I don't know how you break through the clutter there.
yeah, yeah. I think, John, you are lucky enough that your wish is answered in that way because what I was really thinking from the start of conversation because I was juggling between multiple tabs going through all the socials your theories and your processes about a lot of different things and there are a lot of courses out there LSM stuff and stuff like that because if someone is out of industry also he or she can easily go through your socials and see how big the knowledge bank there it is. So I was just thinking being a technical guy myself, what's the product version of John? What's the product version of John that can be built upon all the knowledge bank that he has? What I'm really thinking is, let us suppose there's a person A or B. They're quite new to this whole area, and they want to understand how can your 30 years of experience in building and scaling ventures be helpful for them. So maybe you are not available for them because you are already occupied with a lot of different stuff there, but you can an AI version of you can at least answer their most frequently asked questions. At least do the pre-qualification stuff. So what I really did is basically I want you to test it out. Basically, what I really did is I grabbed some information from your website. I made a simple chatbot that can talk like you. So I just want to share you the link on your email. I want you to click on that, have some conversation. So I want to see that live reaction from your side upon how you feel about this, John's AI. So and yeah, so over to you, buddy. I'm sharing you on your email.
All right, I'll take a look at that. I'll take a look at that. It'd be interesting. Do we have anything else, guys? Or
No, I
okay.
mean, was that? I thought you were doing okay. So yeah, I do have a couple of things that I want to. Let's just call this a quick lightning round, right?
Okay. Sure.
Um, let's say, what is the most underrated business skill?
Leadership.
Mhm.
Too many people are micromanagers.
I agree. I must agree. Most overrated technology.
Most overrated technology. There's so many.
Yeah.
AI.
Right. I think there's so much of it that a lot of it is overrated. I have to agree too. I have to agree too. Best piece of advice your father gave you.
Create your own path. You know, be the boss of you,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Probably you're gonna answer this last question I have. The job title you're most proud of.
You know what? Probably Gray Cat Enterprises president and
Right.
CEO. You know,
Right.
honestly, when I left the corporate world, all my buddies were just like, "Are you crazy? You're on the fast track. You can run any company. You're going to be in that position." The woman I date says the same thing to me. You ever think about going back? You could be the president of a $5 billion company, and I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need that. I had it. I relished in it. I made great relationships. I know I can influence and guide people that are on my teams. I don't need that for my ego. I'm quite content being the president and CEO of my own little company that I have refused to hire people because a lot of people have asked me to hire them. And I said, nope, I want to do this by myself. I like doing the content. I don't like being a 100% administrator. I like adding value to my clients. And that's the one I'm the most proud of is that I've been able to not go into being homeless. I've been able to pay my mortgage by doing great, Cat. So it's all good.
Love
It's
it.
all good.
Yeah. What would you tell a 30-year-old thinking about going solo?
Get experience before you do it. Build your network
Mm-hmm.
well in advance. Be a pack rat. Save as much as you can. Don't expect success to come unless you bust your rear. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get going. I may look like it's pretty simple now, but I've worked a lot of hours to make it what it is, and so and quite candidly, I even go back to because I get frustrated sometimes when people are posting saying, "Oh, I just can't make it in this world. I bust my rear, and I'm not, able to earn enough money and everything like that." My first retail job, I was a cheese mold scraper at Hickory Farms. Okay, I would walk around, open up packages, and scrape mold off of cheese into a bucket. That's what I did for 2 weeks. That was my very first retail job. And then I started at Little Caesars as a manager, a trainee, and my wife at the time was like, "Are you friggin' kidding me? We're moving from Denver, Colorado to Chicago so you can run a pizzeria?" And, I started at the bottom. And a lot of people, I think, want to start at the director or VP level. And sometimes you got to start at the bottom and you got to work your way up. And you got to learn every step along the way. And the years I spent in operations at Little Caesars are so invaluable to what I do today. Even though I've had more years in marketing than I've had in operations, but my operational background has served me well. And I would have never had that had I not taken that initial job at Little Caesars being in operations.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think enough young people view like, wow, I want my perfect job when I'm 24. No, your perfect job is probably not going to come until you're 30 or 40. But if you do all these other jobs and you work in operations and you work in real estate and you work in marketing and you work in merchandising, now you become even more valuable for that job that you want in your 30s and your 40s because
Right.
if you work in finance and things along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. You know what? Most of the most successful operations that I've seen, it's because they're being led by, people that started from the bottom. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's there's a big relation to that.
Yep.
Um, all right. I guess last question, or maybe I have two. Do you have a book that maybe you recommend?
Yeah, my 3 books that I've written that are all on
Okay,
Amazon.
shoot them out so we can promote them for you.
I have one called Game Changing Strategies for Retailers, but it's not necessarily for retailers. It actually takes a lot of ideas on how you manage capital, how you manage operations, how you manage merchandising, marketing, how you promote yourself. So it's probably 150 pages, but it's a good read. For retail specific, I have 2 books. I have one, How to Stage a Killer Grand Opening. You could use that for an anniversary or a grand opening. It's like 30 pages, but it's A to Z, how to stage a grand opening at your store, maybe a grand opening weekend. And then I have one called Local Store Marketing for Retailers. It's 22 ideas that have worked well for me over the course of my career in retail. And it's not written for marketing people. It's written for an operator that doesn't want to read the book. It's 80 pages long. They want one idea, and there's 3 pages to that one idea. That's all you have to read are those 3 pages. And then if you want to do another idea, there's another 3 pages. So it's written for an operator that says, you know what, I need to figure out how to raise my sales in a month, and I'm going to put on an event at my store, and lo and behold, here's an idea on how to put
There's
on
a
an event
module.
at my store.
I love it.
So,
Awesome.
yep.
I guess my last question is, for someone maybe listening today, sitting, struggling with their business, not sure if they need a consultant or not sure if they need, to, integrate some AI into the business, that they're stuck, right? What can you tell them?
It's all the little things. It's execution. I don't have a silver bullet. There isn't anything that I did that is just absolutely the silver bullet of success. It is, I get up every morning. I'm very routine based. I spend time cultivating relationships on LinkedIn. I spend time cultivating relationships in real life. I spend time creating content. I spend time trying to find new business. I spend time executing flawlessly on the projects that my clients give me, so they continue to pay me and they continue to give me more projects. It's pretty simple. I'm a master at execution, and I don't get caught up in the, I'm going to do it prettier or anything. I just execute, and that's how I've built my business. And there's no shortcuts. It's just hard work, and it is something that you just got to love to do. And as long as you continue to do that, you're going to be fine. But
I love it.
It's 22 years of that, and I've never had a month where I haven't had revenue. So I constantly keep that rolling along. So
I love it. I mean, it's all about results at the end of the day, so. Listen, John, it's been more than an honor. Really, truly is a pleasure. I know you're busy doing a lot of podcasts these days. We would love to circle this back to you. One thing that I tell you, sometimes we are doing these podcasts, we don't know what we're doing, but one thing that does happen is that we get to meet incredible people, right? And, you are a true testament of, why we want to continue to, build our network and do what we're doing in this sense, right? So thank you again for joining us, really. And again, I'm probably going to reach out a couple of months in and see if we can get in a conversation again.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. You got it, John. Thank you.
Take care.